Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Soul Grows in Israel, where we sit down with Alexa Eden, who is a brand strategist, coach, and humane technologist, helping artists, entrepreneurs, and visionaries create healthy boundaries with technology, social media, and content creation. She began keeping Shabbat in 2018 after researching the future of AI. She is filled with wisdom and she really blew my mind. And I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. And I'm sure you'll enjoy it as much as I did. So stay tuned. A Soul Grows in Israel, a podcast where we ask the questions about ancient Jewish wisdom, modern life, and everything in between. So let's ask, let's have fun, and let's grow together. Hello, Alexa Eden. Coolest name ever. Welcome to A Soul Grows in Israel.
Thank you for having me. As soon as I saw your podcast, I was like, I need to be a part of this. I love what you're doing.
And then I saw your email and I read through it and I'm like, wow, we are just like, it's inevitable. We're going to have a conversation together. And before we started, you mentioned what your Hebrew name was. Can you tell the audience?
Esther Rivka, actually.
I love it.
Yes, we have Esther Malka and Esther Rivka.
It's so Jewish, matriarchal. I love it. And you said something about the rise of the Esthers.
Yeah, I saw a sign at the Museum of Intolerance a year and a half ago. And also I saw it again at the old train station, but it was just a big sign that said the rise of the Esthers and all these different faces of women leaders that made a big impact in the world. And I feel like we've seen a lot of that in the past 2 years. And I'm very glad to see it because I think the rise of the feminine and feminine leadership is like what we need and what's coming. So here we are.
Here we are. And here we were, because it was always in Jewish history. It was always a Jewish woman in their zchut of being strongly feminine. And whatever that means, that it's so open to interpretation, but kind of that intuitive wisdom that women have specifically in the Jewish world. I think that's also the future of all redemption. I really do.
100%. And probably why we both decided to move to Israel in these times.
Well, let's go to my first question then. Tell me, first of all, who are you? Where do you come from? And of course, how did you get here to the Holy Land?
So my name is Alexa Eden, as you so introduced me as. And it happens to be that I work as a humane technologist and brand strategist, and I focus all on balance. So I like to introduce myself, Alexa, like the Amazon speaker, Eden like the garden, and we find the balance between accelerated technology and slow living. It was like totally mina shamayim that was my name, and that's what I'm here to do. So I've been working on kind of developing this philosophy in the world for almost 10 years. And what really started it for me was I started realizing that social media was an important tool for us to use to express ourselves in the world and connect with people. And as I started prioritizing that in my life, I said, if I don't have boundaries with this, it's going to be really bad. Like if I don't have like real dedicated boundaries. And so I started doing a lot of research on technology and the impacts on our social health, our emotional health. And this was back in 2016, 2015. And I'm like, if I don't have good boundaries now, what is it going to look like in the future when I have kids? And technology is going to evolve so rapidly. If I don't have boundaries for myself, then I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how I'm going to maintain my health in the long term. And that's actually when I started keeping Shabbat. So I didn't grow up Shomer Shabbat at all. We did Friday night dinners, but it was like a very traditional household. And so when I was doing all this research, I realized, you know what? It's built into our customs. It's built into our tradition. It's from the Torah that you're supposed to take one day totally off of work. And in this modern day, that means turning off all electronics and really stepping away from our digital lives. So when I started doing this research, I was like, you know what? Now's the time. Like I need to create this for myself so that in the future I have an infrastructure for my children so that they know that there's a balance between the digital world and the human world. So that got a lot of my work started. And then, you know, after October 7th, it was very clear that, you know, this is the future. And I'm totally like a spiritual futurist. So this is a future and this is the place. And I felt like, you know, if I don't do it now, it's only going to get harder to leave life in the diaspora, and that I wanted to be a part of making history and building history and not watching it from the sidelines. And Yeah, we'll have more time to talk about it all, but that's a little bit about me.
That's an amazing introduction, and it probably just scratches the surface. I'm also one to look towards the future. And when I look to the future and I see my children's generation here in Israel, I'm so filled with hope that any sort of people have this fatigue when they think about where the world is today. And I'm just filled with the opposite energy. And maybe living here does that or knowing the people that I know. But yeah, forward thinking, I think, is what propels you forward and not being stuck and looking back. And I do think the saying that b'makom shabale tshuva omdim, a place where someone who comes to Torah, the biggest tzaddik can never reach it. I really believe that. And you're coming here with a lot of balance. And I think there's this temptation to go extreme sometimes. And I wonder, how do you keep the balance in Torah observance and also with what you're dealing with in technology?
Such a good question. I always think about balance not as a destination, but a practice. And I think that was probably the biggest mindset shift is that there's no perfect balance. And I remember years ago somebody asking me, so you've got this, beautiful morning routine and you wake up and you do all these things, but what's going to happen when you have kids and you're not going to be able to have that time? And I said, it's going to evolve and it's going to adjust. And it's like, and you just are in constant striving towards finding whatever balance is for you in that moment. So I think that's like the biggest first mindset shift is that balance is a practice and it's a process, but that's not an actual destination. Like you don't actually hit balance all of a sudden and you're like, amazing, it's evolutionary.
That's amazing. It's like alive. And I don't think you hit any destination for real. I think it's always moving and shifting. And that's the beauty of life and scratching your head in like complete, I don't even know what to do next. That's the beauty of everything. That is so interesting. So if balance is necessarily a practice, what is your morning practice now that you do have kids? What does it look like?
So I actually don't have kids yet, but I do
Yeah.
speak about having kids like I do because I'm speaking them into
You give
reality.
very maternal energy, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. When I moved to Israel, actually, I was like, it's time for my Rivka era. Like I've had my Alexa era, I had my Eden era, I had my Esther era, and then it was like my Rivka era. And it's so interesting because moving to Jerusalem, it really is a feminine city. Like this is where like the Shekhinah is dwelling. And so when I moved here from New York, obviously New York is a very masculine place. You're always building something, hustling, like you're always on the move. And when I came here, it was so clear to me that there was like this feminine presence that was around me and ultimately was being birthed through me. And so I've kind of been stepping into that a lot more. And thank you for reflecting that back. I
Yeah,
appreciate
of course. You know, I'm also a New Yorker, and I do think Isabel could have that masculine energy, but I very much also grew into myself here. Maybe it's age, maybe it's the Kedusha. But when I think of Rivka, it's a very interesting character in the Torah because she is not naive at all. And she takes sort of this very interesting background that you could almost call cynical or dark, and she uses it for such beauty. And to me, that's so inspirational that we're not doomed to necessarily stay where we're from, but we get to use it to our advantage to bring more light instead of denying it, or trying to make things squeaky clean.
100%. I think also that's like a big piece to the Balchuva journey that I don't know if it's spoken about enough, and I'll say enough with like, quotations next to it, but I think that there's a really big piece of integrating our whole selves. And so coming from, being a not religious and growing up and then finding Torah and growing into it, it's like there are parts of me that existed before I was religious, and those parts are really important. And I do think that there's a lot of kind of infrastructure in place that says like now that you're Torah observant, like those things leave them behind. But what we're seeing so much more in this day and age is this idea of integration, of like taking our whole selves and bringing it into the moment. And I was actually listening to the astrology podcast that you did recently
Yes.
and like really understanding that there are parts of us that were like preordained and that when we really learn them and we really work with them and we bring it into who we are, then we have so much more strength and we have so much more power to do what we're meant to do in the world without shame and without judgment, without heaviness. And that's actually where the light comes. And like, I think that's where we're at, especially, as a Jewish people, that's this whole integration of who we are. We like seeing ourselves as an entire body of people and bringing that to the surface and like trusting that the people that are farming and the people that are in the army and the people that are Haredi and the people that are in tech, like we're all one nation. We're all doing what we're meant to be doing because the finger is different than the toe, is different than the elbow, but it's all one body. And like when we take that into account, we embrace that, we can actually become the light that we're meant to be to the world.
You know, when my body has full chills, I pay attention. And that just happened. No, because the soul just got lit up. And it's so true how people are so wanting to change the people around them to think like them because they have the truth or they have the fast lane to God or to Geula or to practicality or whatever. But in reality, we need all of us for this shalem, the shalom, the wholeness of the puzzle. So when you take your background and your nefesh and where you come from and you integrate it, I think that's it. I think that's the point of all of us.
100%.
Yeah, that's really
100%.
cool. Okay, so what is your routine when you wake up in the morning?
So, okay, so like I said, balance is for me a practice. And I, since moving here, have totally taken a different approach. I used to be the type of girl that like woke up at 5 a.m., was at the gym on the Stairmaster 5:45, doing an hour of cardio, like, that whole thing. And it was very regimented. But now I've kind of relaxed into like just when I wake up, whenever that is, like I happen to be able to have like a flexible schedule. Whenever that is, that's when I get into like, I do my stretching, I do my writing, I do my meditation, I do my davening, I have my matcha. Like I switched to matcha because coffee is like a little bit too intense for me. And just from all of those things, like once I get my body into alignment and my energy is flowing, that's when I can start my day. That's when I see my priorities with the most clarity. And those are the things I prioritize. And there are days where it doesn't look like that. There's totally days where I don't have that routine at all. And I notice the difference. And I think that's the practice of balance, of when you have a routine that's working for you and you feel really good, you're like, oh, this works. I'm going to keep doing that. But then the only way to know that it works is to have days that you don't do it. So you realize how much that's working for you. You have to get off, you have to be able to fall so you can get back on. Um, so that's like some of the things that I do, but also like a big piece for me is developing structures so that creativity can flow. So a lot of the things that I do with my brand consulting and coaching is I help people design structures in their life so that every day can really be conducive for their own creativity. Like I work with a lot of artists and entrepreneurs, and their most creative time is between 9 and 11 a.m. or 9 and 12 a.m. Or some people are night owls. Like when the world gets kind of quiet, that's when all their stuff starts starting. So I actually work with them to develop structures around those rhythms so that way they protect the sacredness of those rhythms. Like an artist needs space and time to deepen into their creativity. And if they're constantly like distracting themselves or running or taking meetings or trying to produce something, they're not actually in the art that they care about so much. So I'm really big on creating structures that basically protect the creative process in a way that really helps people feel like they're in their flow.
Yeah, I love that. So if you did have a customer that came to you and said, here's my business, walk me through how this works, this relationship.
Yeah. Okay. So I have an amazing client. She's here in Jerusalem and she's actually busy. She's busier than she's ever been. And she's having to switch her mindset from, I used to be hustling for clients all the time. And now I have like almost a wait list. And, I said, well, what's your system of booking clients? She's like, well, I kind of just text them and then they tell me when they're available and then they book it. I'm like, well, when do you have time for yourself? And she's just starting to learn that she needs to schedule time for herself. So we actually broke down her whole schedule. I have like a whole system that I do with people. Like, what are your most important things that you want to prioritize in your life?
Mhm.
Socially, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, kind of the five pillars. And then we create these little, let's say for physical health, you need to take a 90-minute walk every week. So that's something that we put it into the schedule. And we kind of create this schedule that is their ideal lifestyle that hits all their pockets. Like and that we do the same, that's like the more feminine side. And then we do the same thing for their business. So we do like all their systems, their admin, their financial health, their marketing, their PR, everything that they have to do for their business.
Yeah.
We kind of write that out and then we schedule it into the week. And all those things happen before they can even book in clients. Because once that structure is in place, you can actually show up for your clients so much more with more focus and more energy because you've covered the things that you need to do.
Mhm.
So we've been working on that and creating the structures. And actually, the most important thing that we've kind of uncovered is that she's been afraid of the structure because she's afraid structure will actually take away from her creativity.
Mm.
But what we worked on was when you create structure from your feminine place, you're protecting the femininity.
Wow.
You're using the masculine as the structure. So when you create from the feminine place, which says, I actually need my mornings to be quiet, or I need my mornings to be for writing, or I need my whatever it is, and you create the structure to protect that, you're actually in like a full harmony with your masculine and feminine energies for whatever it is that you want to prioritize.
Wow, because we have both in us. And, it makes sense to be afraid of something. I imagine the analogy would be like, you're treading water and everything is so almost unorganized. And all of a sudden, there's someone in a lifeboat that's like, okay, I see your whole issue. And here's what you need to do. And you're on the outside on dry land. And I think that is so valuable for people in it.
100%. I just wrote something the other day like, hey, if this is your life, you're not alone. You don't have to figure it out by yourself. Like I've been spending nearly a decade creating systems and structures, mostly just for lifestyle, like for peace and happiness. So like, you can call in a friend, like call in someone to support you with this. Um, because it is a lot to manage all
Yeah.
on our own and doesn't even bring in this whole social media concept, which we can talk about because that also drains us. It diverts our attention. It brings us into a ton of different places. Like if we're creatives or entrepreneurs or business builders, that's one thing. But even just as like mothers and humans in this world, there's so much intensity that's going on our screens that like if we aren't really devoted and dedicated to creating sacred spaces that are distancing ourselves from the phone, we get so tied up in whatever's being fed to us. And ultimately, like our most human power comes from within and not from what's being, consumed.
Yes. I find the news, for me, it's like drinking cyanide sometimes. It looks I don't know what it is that attracts you to the negativity or the sensationalism, but I notice right away I'm a different person and it is toxic for me. So what I've done recently on Instagram was I put on filters. Like I don't want to see explicit content and I don't want to see things that have to do with genocide or whatever. I
Yes.
wonder what advice you would give people out there who are mindlessly scrolling, or even if they're just on WhatsApp obsessively. All of us are sort of, they designed to addict us. They designed it to
Yeah,
like pull us in. What can we do?
it's a great question. And it's a really relevant question because we mentioned this a little bit when we just started speaking, but you know, social media has kind of become our media platforms. It's where we're getting our information. It's like it's almost become built into our system. Like we have to check what's happening there because we want to be up on current events.
Mhm.
And the kind of I'll say this with like a lowercase t, but the traumatizing piece of that is that the platforms actually they want you to be on there more. So I really started redigging into this about 2 months ago because all of a sudden I just started seeing these characters on my social media feed that like I once really respected. And all of a sudden they were like saying like crazy propaganda things that I was like, wait a second, like how could this have happened? And it started getting me so aggravated inside, like really aggravated. Like I could barely move through my day. And so I had to stop. I had to slow down and I had to ask myself, first of all, why is this happening? It's happening because when I'm aggravated, I'm creating a trauma bond with the social media site, and it's making me go back to it more and more.
Mm.
So I think the first thing is for all of us to educate ourselves on how these platforms are created. They are really designed, and they've been designed from the beginning, but the more that they've learned what works, they've designed it even more intentionally to keep us engaged. And that's a nice way of saying it, engaged.
Yeah.
Um, there's actually such a great line. There's a documentary which I recommend everybody watch. It's called The Social Dilemma on Netflix, which goes into all this about how it's developed and it's designed, and it really shows like tech leaders, and they're revealing the truths about how these platforms are built. And this was back in 2020. So if you watch it now and you see the way they're discussing like polarization and politicalizing things and swaying opinion. They're talking about this 5 years ago, and now we're living it full bloom with TikTok. Like it's like so much more intense. So I think the first thing is to educate ourselves and to really understand how these are built. Once you learn that, then it's about creating an own internal like an internal system of like, does this feel good for me? Is
Mm.
this something that I want to be spending my time doing? How can I spend my time doing other things? What do I want to be doing? And so I also do a big workshop with people that are struggling with this to really unpack these questions. What is their relationship with social media? How is it helping them? How is it harming them? How does it help them get their work done? How does it distract them from their work? And we kind of go through all these questions to really identify like, what's the intentionality with these platforms? Like, why are you using it? So you can check yourself, like, I'm on this mindlessly, but is that what I signed up for? No, I wanted to use this to connect with friends. I wanted to use this to promote my business. And then you can say, okay, great. Well, I'm not doing that right now, so I can put it away. You know,
Mm.
so it's creating an internal kind of check and balance system that helps you navigate these very addictive platforms.
The self-regulation is the hardest. If you have like a timer on your phone that would just not give you the option to like extend, it's so much easier than when you're telling yourself, it's the same thing. Don't say that piece of gossip is the same idea as turn off my phone. It's that you need that internal strength. And what is more worthwhile than building that muscle though? That's the gift that keeps on giving in general.
100%. I think about this all the time. Like, I've witnessed this many times in my own life and also with people around me, but Shabbat is like the most blissful thing in the world. We have all this time and space to connect with ourselves and our families and our loved ones and Hashem, and it's the most beautiful time of the week. And as soon as we do Havdalah, like we all of that energy, all of that like peace, all of that glory, all of that connection literally goes into like what? Social media for what? Why? So I have created these rituals in my life where instead of that transition, like Havdalah, you say a couple prayers, you can either make it short or you can like draw it out. Like I have like dance parties. Like I go into like a whole Hasidic dance party music thing. Like I'm like cleaning the house and I get into this whole thing where like I could literally go an hour out of Shabbat because like I've filled my post Shabbat time with things that like I can process the day. I can reintegrate instead of just all of a sudden it's like you can feel it next time that happens like and you make that transition so quickly. It's like when you go on vacation or even more pertinent, we're in Israel and you go to the airport
Hmm.
and all of a sudden you're like on a high because you're in Israel and then you get on the plane and then as soon as you land wherever you're landing, it's not Israel anymore. And you're like, oh my God, I feel like it's going away. And so, creating that integration moment where you're like, okay, I had a beautiful Shabbat.
Hmm.
What do I want to hold on to? I always ask my husband, what was your favorite part of Shabbat?
Oh.
Because I want to know, it's like hold on to something before we just transition into whatever is like more important outside of it?
I love that. I've heard that people ask Lubavitch Rebbe how to hold on to moments like that. And he would say, like, keep one thing from there for the rest of your life. So if
Wow.
you did go on vacation, a lot of times in that quiet of a Shabbat, you have ideas. And I think those ideas are extremely holy, even if it's about your week specifically. It's that time where you're open, hopefully. I also know on the flip side, people who get very anxious on Shabbat because they don't have that place to escape to.
Mhm.
And I wonder if that's also healthy, sort of that awareness, like all week long, I am numbing myself and here I am. Am I comfortable with just this?
Wow. Yeah, it's one
Allowing
of the when I've met people who learn about Shabbat, most of the time when I speak about it with Jewish people, I have a lot of non-Jewish friends that I've told them about Shabbat and they love it. They love the idea. They're like, this is great. Why not? And Jews are often like, how could I do that? Like, I wouldn't want to step away for that amount of time. But I think that's the most important thing that you know, it's important to realize it now, but again, why I got into this whole industry in the first place was what I saw 10 years ago, which is, yeah, okay, so social media is really connected to us. And our phones, now basically sleep with our phones next to us, which I don't recommend. You should put it somewhere else. But there's this like connection. But then we have an Apple Watch, and now we have an Aura Ring, and then we have Alexa, and then we have suddenly all these technological products are integrated into our lives where if we don't actively create sacred boundaries where there is no technology, the line between us being human and the technology being technology gets so blurred. And now, I mean, with AI and the way that chatbots are really integrating into lives, I mean, I research this like all day long. So my whole entire sphere is about like what's happening in the AI world. Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of suicides and a lot of deaths because they're so connected to the chatbot. it's like it's giving them a false sense of reality. So our responsibility as Jews, because we've been given Shabbat, is to understand that this break is a sacred break and it's a break for us to remind ourselves what it means to be human. And so, yes, anxiety is a part of it, and anxiety can be worked through because it's an understanding. It's just a signal. It's just a signal. Okay, what are you anxious about?
Mhm.
What are you numbing yourself from? How can you recreate a story and create a new narrative around that thing that you're running away from? And it's just a sign and a signal to do deeper work around that thing. And I really think that we're in the era where like all of us need to be taking responsibility for the work that we need to do for ourselves to become whole in who we are and how we function in the world because we need more light. And that's what happens when you do that type of work.
Yeah, it's almost like this opportunity that when you do gain that strength, you're so much stronger than maybe pre 2015 when these temptations weren't around, because it really is a call to be greater. And I find that to be also very, I don't know, inspiring, I would say. I had that exact feeling during the war, right post October 7th. I felt like those 25 hours of Shabbat, it was gone. And I was so nervous about turning on my phone after Havdalah. So I wonder collectively, whoever's listening to this pod today, maybe we could push off our phone every Saturday night by another 15 minutes and see what that feels like. Maybe it doesn't have to be a dance party, whatever your dance party is. I think that's such a great thing to take upon ourselves for the upcoming year. Beautiful.
And, I think also when we speak about the war, you know, it's important for us to stay connected to it and to understand what's going on. And it's also really important to be active,
Mm,
like to be active, to looking what we can do in our community, what our family and friends need, how we can be more present for them. And I mean, it's a very, very big difference between what life is like here in Israel and what life is in America or in diaspora. It's very different. Like when a siren goes off at 6 in the morning, you don't read about it in the news, you hear it and you feel it and you respond to it. And so I think like, just remembering where we are and trying to make the most of that. I mean, I use this line all the time as just to say, like a simple reminder, but we did get to the moon before social media,
yeah.
which means like we are powerful beings and that we can do so much without it. We can also do a lot with it, but there's this balance that we're like meant to cultivate for a healthy life and
Yes.
not to get like sucked into it.
Well, speaking of your social media, I have to say that it's so interesting that you're able to limit it and have boundaries because when I'm looking at your page, it looks so invested in. It is so beautiful and aesthetically pleasing. Like, tell me how that works for you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, it's an art. It feels like an art for me. Like I really feel like I get to express myself through it. But when I created the personal brand for Alexa Eden, I had created intentions and I created values. And this is what I do with my clients also. Like, what are your intentions for this platform? What do you want to use it for?
Hmm.
And for me, I want to use it to showcase who I am, to get new clients, and to tell stories and to share my life. And beyond that, like, I'm not interested in getting thousands and thousands of followers. Like, for me, it's just a place where people can meet me and understand who I am and get a little bit of a vibe. And that's the brand.
Yeah.
And that's enough for me. It's not like I am always thinking, what's the next trend? Like, how am I going to jump on it? No, it's very much like this is just a small expression of who I am, but it's small enough and big enough that you can understand, oh, who this person is. She
Hmm.
likes, a lot of the times I meet people for the first time, but they've been following me for a while. And they're like, oh, you probably like this or that, or like your yoga routine. And I'm like, yeah, that's branding. That's being intentional about sharing certain things. But I have shared with clients that even if you do want to create a brand for yourself, that doesn't mean you have to share everything.
That makes
Like,
sense.
I love food. I'm a foodie, but I don't post pictures of my food.
Mm-mm.
Like, because that's not in alignment with what I want to be producing and putting out into the world. So
Yeah.
there is a balance, and creating structures for that is the most important thing. Like, I post X amount of times a week. I use this day to write. I use this day to schedule. I use this day to reach out to people. And everything is in like orderly fashion so that I don't get lost in this sauce of like, I always have to be on because
Mm.
it's detrimental that way.
Yeah, you can sense it. You can sense which accounts are frantically looking for validation, and you can see the accounts that are there in a structured way, and it's very calming. So even if your intent wasn't to spread calmness and smiles. That's what it's doing. And it's just so nice. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it because it's been like, it's been an effort. So I appreciate that reflection.
Of course. So here's
Yeah.
an interesting thought. A friend of mine's husband was talking to ChatGPT and asking him, her, it tons of questions about Israel. And the final conclusion was ChatGPT answered, "You're right. We do have a lot more input when it comes to hate because there's way more people who hate Jews than there are Jews who love Jews. Unfortunately, it's a numbers game and we're trying to work on it." And that left me with this feeling like when it comes, and I love ChatGPT, I kind of use it for a lot. But
Mhm.
I could see how real information won't be real very soon, or maybe it already isn't. What can we do in terms of AI? Is it building a better filter when we're reading it? Is it talking about it openly with friends? Like it's a huge force here that is just beginning, I feel.
100%. I was just speaking with my husband about this
Mhm.
because we both are using it a lot for our business. And sometimes it's like overloading, right? It's like, yeah, it could spit out a 90-day content plan for me, but I'm like, whoa, whoa, like I'm not working on a 90-day cycle. Like I'm working on a 2-week cycle. Like I don't want the 90 days. So, it's like understanding what our capacities are because you can't skim through a ton of things so quickly. We have to like really have an internal compass that says like, okay, this is a little bit too much for me, and the
Mhm.
more time we spend off of the computer, it helps us understand when we're interacting with it, what we can handle and what we can't handle.
Yeah.
But in terms of the misinformation, like I love the fact that Torah has literally never changed. Like it was written once and it never changed. And so as Jews, we just get, I mean, anyone in the world, but especially as Jews,
Mhm.
we get a really special opportunity to turn back to a book that
Mhm.
has never changed, that is always evolving because we're always evolving. And like that's truth, and
Yeah.
truth comes from a place of like MS, like that's what it is. And so, there's going to be all these speculations of things in the world and to remember that like the AI was created by humans. It's built by humans. It's gathering information online, most of which is built from human and written by humans.
Mhm.
And there's always going to be human error. So, when we actually want to understand what's true and what's not true, first it's to really turn into the Torah and to like connect to that.
Mhm.
And also our bodies and our cells know truth. When you get chills on your body, when you hear something that resonates for you, that's truth.
Yeah.
And so I am a big advocate for the human intelligence of our, society is understanding like what is true intuitively, what feels right, or like how do I handle this situation, or do I want to work with this client, or do I need a break? Or like, really being in touch with your body and being like, oh, something feels really stressed about this situation. What is it? Like, let me slow down. Let me inquire. Let me do the work inside. So I really think, again, this is where the balance between technology and human come in, is really like we need to develop these skills inside of us that allow us to develop our intuition, develop our empathy. Like I spend time thinking about something that happened a year and a half ago to like one person that could have been in a crowd at a music festival when it said Free Palestine. Like I'm like still thinking of that one person that could have been in that crowd, feeling the whole world cheered on them. And like I'm like empathizing with that experience. That's empathy. I never met the person. I was never there. It's been a lot of time. Like, so realizing that those are our superpowers and
Mhm.
that as much as AI is a tool and it's going to augment our reality, it's not everything.
Mhm.
And we have so much more intelligence than we give ourselves credit for. So it's worth developing that.
I didn't expect such a profound, deep answer. That was mind blowing because you took our superpowers, which are intuition, empathy, imagination, that are not bound by limits or any sort of structure, and yet then you mentioned the Torah, which all it's constant. It was on tablets that were stone, unchangeable and unmovable, and we have these two very dynamically different yet togetherness things coming in. I think that is so beautiful. And that really spoke to me. That actually is the first answer I've ever heard about AI that made me feel good because we have way more powerful forces.
This is when I saw your podcast of blending the ancient and the modern.
Mm.
I was like, this is so where we're at right now. Like Hashem created everything in this world, and everything that Hashem creates is good. And yes, he also created AI. And yes, it's being used in ways that aren't good. And at the same time, we all know that if it came from Hashem, which it did, then there is goodness to it. And so no matter what it is, you can drive a car 200 miles an hour in a very dangerous way, and that could not be good. But
Mm.
you could also drive a car to take someone to the hospital if they're pregnant. There's so many ways to like look at whatever is given to us in the world and to work with it in a positive way. And I think that's where we're at with AI, is to really understand that we have the power more than it has the power, and to feel like we kind of have to fill our own tank with the things that inspire us, that connect us, that give us clarity and truth, and then use it as a tool. Like, okay, now that I got this understanding, can you help me with do these things?
Yeah, and almost like the prerequisite to all of this is learning about yourself and really what makes you happy, which a lot of people still aren't there yet. And I've recommended that people make lists of what makes them happy, from showering to vacations to big and small. What fills you up? Like, what happens? You mentioned stretching, maybe yoga, meditation. Are those the things that make you feel whole?
So they're actually the things that help, but I love being with family.
Mm.
Like, I love being with family. I love nature. I love walking in nature and hearing birds chirping. I think birds chirping in the morning and sunshine are like the things that make me the happiest. I actually have a rainbow, it's like a solar powered rainbow crystal that like twists. And so in the morning when the sun comes through my window, it like starts this like rainbow thing around the whole room. And like for me, it just brings me joy. It's like it's a new day and it's colorful. So yeah, there's things that like make me joyous, and then there's things that like help me align in my body and ground and connect and like, nurture my energy and things like that. But like true joy is nature and connection and birds chirping and friends and people. And it's like, yeah.
I love that. And those most amazing things that you've just listed are all free, you know?
No, it's like the craziest. I remember working with a coach once, and they said like, so on an ideal day, what would it look like? And I made a list, and I was so excited about it. And he just goes like, spoiler alert, all those things are free.
Isn't
There's
that
like
so
no reason
liberating?
why you can't do those things
Yeah.
because they're all free. And I was like, that was like
Yeah.
such a mind-blowing thing.
You know, I last night we were trying to figure out what to do. We're all jet lagged. We just came back from the States or whatever. And it wasn't too hot. It was like 5:30 p.m. And I just kind of got everyone into the car. And simplest thing, we just went to go watch the sunset and we got to put our feet in the ocean and we came home. And again, we bought a bottle of water. That was it from home. And we came home and it was so much more uplifting than going to a restaurant or whatever. And I know it sounds like duh, but no, sunsets. You said birds chirping. I always think about that. That's like this music that's just for us to enjoy. Flowers, they're just for us to enjoy. I love that.
These are the things that I think we forget about.
Mm.
Like ChatGPT cannot give us this. I'm sorry, it will never be able to give us this. These are the things that we need to hold on to as humans that remind us, like, oh, we can smell, we can see color, we can speak to each other, we can feel energies around us. Like I love that. It's such a simple thing, but it also is such a big thing just to break the pattern and be like, oh, today we're gonna go watch the sunset, and that's it. That's the task.
Highlight.
Like, just go watch.
I think that's what life is about. I really do. I think some of us are lucky enough that we can integrate how we make money with the things that make us whole and the things that are connected to whatever it is that our souls are wanting. And for some of us, they aren't the same thing. But still, I always recommend do the 5 minutes of that thing or an hour or whatever it is. Which brings me to my next question for you. I've been noticing you have retreats. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. I love retreats, first of all. Specifically, I like focusing on women's retreats and Jewish women retreats. I feel like there's something lacking in our world for some reason where we don't get these like beautiful, luxurious, upscale, holy wellness
Mm.
experiences. Like there's just something that feels like it's lacking, where women get together for a few days and they take care of their mind and their body and they set intentions and they're sitting quietly. It's like, it's not the most earth-shattering thing. It's not like I'm coming with this crazy system and process, but it's basically creating a sacred space where women can reconnect with themselves, reconnect with nature, and reconnect with each other.
Mm.
And from that, what I do add into that is I do help them create structures and systems on how they can go home and bring more of that into their life. So I always design like really curated goodie bags of things that they can go home with that will essentially create ritual and sacredness in their lives once they go back home. And that to me is like, I still think about how beautiful our retreat in Tuscany was. It was just such a beautiful, again, it's not that it was so earth-shattering that I brought in the most professional people. It was just the pureness and the simplicity of like, here are a few days to yourself.
Mhm.
And, my sister works in finance in New York and she works really hard. She actually came on the retreat. And at one moment, I texted her, like, hey, where are you during the free time? She answered back maybe an hour later and she said, oh, I was just journaling in the yoga chalet. Like, where are you now? And I'm like, if
Mm.
this retreat was just for that,
Mhm.
that's enough, like just to give people the space to reconnect with themselves and to just like recalibrate. That's what the retreats are for. I haven't gotten the courage to do one in Israel
My
yet
next
because
question, please. Because a lot of women have come over to me and they're like, I'm turning 50 and I'd love a birthday that involved Israel and women. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Alexa, you'd be the perfect person.
yeah, I mean, I think I have like a little bit of it's a logistical nightmare when things change. I mean, we did just get married in the middle of this last Iran attack, and
Mazal tov.
thank
Okay.
you. So everything changed the day before. We were meant to get married at a winery, and then the next day it was like, no, you're not doing that. And then so in one day we just redid it, and it was at the Inbal Hotel, which was beautiful. But logistically, it's a lot of things to change around, and you put a lot of effort into making your treats. It's so much, especially when you want to do it at a high level, and
Yes.
you want everything to be beautiful and every detail to be thought of, and it's a lot of energy. So to put all that energy into something where Hashem could just be like, nope, it's not happening. And then you're just like, okay, like
Yeah.
it's hard. But I mean, I guess because I just went through the wedding with a lot of grace, maybe I'll have more courage. But Bezrat Hashem, we'll have more retreats here in Israel because we need it. And
We do.
yeah,
I imagine like the north is green and the desert is so peaceful and there's so many. I'm just pushing you for myself, but
we'll
um,
speak. We'll speak.
yeah, we'll make it happen, Bezrat Hashem. I think that's so beautiful. And on these retreats themselves, you mentioned yoga, journaling. What else is happening?
So I love sound healing. It's something that's a big part in my life. For many years, it's been a big part of my life.
Mhm.
And it's really understanding that like our cells are always vibrating. And depending on what frequency they're vibrating at is essentially how we're feeling.
Mm.
And so when you're working with sound, there's certain sounds that vibrate at certain frequencies. And so when you create an intentional sound experience, essentially what it's doing is it's like kind of communicating with each different cell because each like your liver cells vibrate differently than your heart cells and
Wow.
your stomach. Everything's different.
Mhm.
And so essentially what the sound healing does is it helps each cell in each area kind of align to its center.
Mm.
And then your whole body kind of comes into this place of like a good frequency. So I sound healing is amazing, and I usually like to try to do it at the beginning because you've got women coming from all areas. They're either traveling or they were just there, or like, everyone's coming from their own thing. You bring them all together and you smooth it out and you get everyone on the same frequency, and then you like open up amazing things. Like I did a weekend retreat in Joshua Tree, and I took all the women to a sound healing session, and afterwards we went to the park and it was like everyone was singing at the top of their lungs for 3 hours, like old school tunes. And everyone's like, why are we singing so much? It feels so good. I feel so alive. I feel so open. And I'm like giggling behind the scenes because I'm like, I took you all to a sound bath. Like,
You know.
that's what we did here.
You know what's so cool about you? I think from a lot of people, if I heard people were like screaming songs in the desert, I might be like a little like, oh, that's a bit weird for me. But then I'm presented with someone like you who's so structured and grounded that it's so much more palatable. Like it's like, ah, this could be safe. And I think that's really important that you keep saying the balance. That's you're sort of in that kav emsa'i, that middle line that makes it spiritual enough but grounded enough. And that very much for me is my comfort zone.
I'm so happy to hear that because I actually don't feel safe in super spiritual environments. Like when I'm somewhere that I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I
Yeah,
love spirituality. I'd rather be like a spiritual person in a grounded place.
same.
That for me feels, yeah.
This is why things like psychedelics scare me so much because to me it's like I can't, I'm gonna evaporate into like, a different realm. That's not where I am. And no shade on people who, whatever. I'm a big believer in all types of therapies for all kinds of people. Me specifically, it's very much 2 feet on the ground because I have this I guess I'm prone a bit to fly away, and that's not a luxury that I want to have in this world. I want to be here in Olam Haza with the connection to the spiritual.
100%. Another thing is horseback riding that has been really amazing, because horses have such a magnificent energy and personality. And I remember during the Tuscany retreat, actually, I knew it was going to be an emotionally kind of stimulating experience. Like I designed the whole retreat to kind of have an emotional landscape where like I'm very intentional about how and when we do everything because like I really want to take people on a journey.
This is what I love. Okay.
When we did the horseback riding, it was like the moment in the journey where like I wanted there to be some sort of like emotional stirring. Like I wanted to stir the emotions a little bit, either in joy or excitement or fear or something. And I remember we got there and one of the girls was like, I'm not touching a horse. I don't want to do it. She got so afraid. And I was like totally with love and kindness and gentleness, holding the space of just like whatever she wanted to do was fine. It was just like that emotional stirring was so important because whatever's there wants to come up. And
Mm.
so it came up, and eventually she got on the horse and she had an amazing time and she worked through it and she realized whatever she was afraid of, she could work through it and she could also have a good time. So it was just such a beautiful arc of witnessing like, letting the body speak to us and letting our emotions guide us, but not to be afraid of them, but to actually invite them in and to work with them. It was beautiful.
That is beautiful because so much of the time we've labeled feelings as positive or negative, but feelings don't come in that form. So if we sit in them, even if it's a bit uncomfortable, but when we sit in them, I think they have a whole journey of info that could just pile on us about insight and what works for us. I love that people can feel safe in their feelings. That's
Yeah.
great.
And in our bodies. I think that's such a big thing. They're safe in our feelings and in our bodies.
Mm.
These are our gifts. Like we're supposed to be, and it's not so easy for everyone and for a number of reasons. And I have a lot of compassion for all of those reasons. And ultimately, like I think it's a voda for us to think in our whole lives, like, can I feel safe in my body? And if I don't feel safe in my body, what do I need to do to get there? And it's very simple because this is our chariot.
Mm.
Hashem gave us this chariot to do what we're meant to do in the world, and this is like our home. So, so I really pray and wish for everybody that they can find that, and in a way that like that feels safe.
I love that. Okay, well, if you're game, I'd like a few rapid fire questions.
Okay.
The reason I like doing this is because every answer from every guest is so colorfully different that it's just fascinating.
Okay.
Okay, my first question is, when you do need to recharge, is it by being alone or is it by being with people or specific people?
I'm such a loner. I love being alone. I need to be alone to recharge.
Same, which makes it challenging when you have a full house. I'm just letting you know now. But
Yeah.
yeah, but if you make, like you say, your intentions clear, people respect your boundaries when you respect your own. And people just like welcome it. Like, hey, mom, you want to do this podcast? At first, it was like, what? And then it was like, wow, yeah, go for it. Here's some advice, or let me help you with your lighting. And I was like, oh, look what happens when you value yourself, people
Mhm.
value you. So I do
Yeah.
think the aloneness is just, yeah, it is sacred. Okay. So you mentioned you love nature. Would you be a mountain or ocean view girl? Mm.
Mountain. I love mountains and lakes. So, like a mountain with a lake right there is ideal for me.
I was just telling my husband my dream for a lake house might not come to fruition because God bless this beautiful country and its oceans, but I don't have a lake house situation. But it is also the greenery and the quiet and the docks, the whole thing speaks to me so much. So I
Yeah.
hear you. I
Let's do
love
a
it.
retreat in a mountain place then.
Oh my gosh, sign me up. Okay. Well, and my last question, which I think is the deepest, but if you had to paint a portrait or a picture of a world that did reach enlightenment, geula, however you want to speak about it, what do you think that kind of world looks like?
Wow. Well, Eden, obviously. It's definitely Eden. It's just definitely the place where we're in harmony with nature and in harmony with each other and in harmony with Hashem. And we're here, you know, taking care of the earth and the world. And, when I talk about where AI is actually going, it's going to the place where it's going to do all of our work for us.
Hmm.
We're going to be able to just live in peace and live in harmony. Like that's why I think Hashem brought it into the world
Yeah.
because we're meant to return back to Eden. And that means that we're just going to be living in harmony with the earth, with the animals, with the plants, with each other. Like that's where we're headed. And so I see it as Eden.
Wow. So, in other words, the curse that was given to Adam and Chava, which was you have to toil the land and you have to suffer in childbirth and all that stuff that was distracting us from coming back to this peace. You're saying slowly this neutral energy, which could be used to the negative, but if it's used to the positive, then we get back to a place where there is less pain and toil. And I think that is just very enlightening. Wow.
There's so much wisdom in the earth. There's so much wisdom in nature. There's so much wisdom from animals. And like I think also here in Israel, we see that there's the land is a living organism. You know, we're not just randomly stom here. It's like it's a living organism and we can learn from it. And there's so many ancient traditions that are really connected to the land. And I think we're kind of in this place of like we're super modern people, we're the high tech nation, like, you know, all these and at the same time we're like protecting this land.
Mhm.
There's something about it, and so I think that we're, you know, the more that we can kind of, you know, use technology to its fullest and also reconnect with our humanness and reconnect with nature and reconnect with the earth, that's where we're going to find that sweet spot of like what we're actually here to do, which is take care of the earth, you know.
Oh my gosh, Alexa Eden, you've given me so much to think about, and you've actually created a lot of light around me and in this room. And really, I feel better about a lot of things. So I have to thank you. And if our listeners want to find out more about you, where can they look?
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad that you're doing this podcast. You're so excellent at it. And it's like definitely something you should continue doing.
Thank you.
I'm online, easy to find me. Alexa, like the Amazon, Eden, like the garden. You can find me on Instagram, Alexa Eden, also on LinkedIn, where I'm a little bit more professional talking about human technology and things like that. But yeah, just you can find me online, Alexa Eden.
All right. And let us know about any new projects or retreats because I know a lot of us would love to join. And you are a delight and pleasure. And same to you. Keep doing what you're doing. It is such a service to women and to the world at large. So thank you.
Thank you, Esther.